new generation. We are the youth of the nation. High in the sky. We are the new generation. Leader. Leader. Leader.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Leaders Dialogue Show, which brings on board seasoned leaders to discuss matters concerning leadership. In our studio, we are privileged to have Mr. John Ng'ang'a. Mr. John Ng'ang'a, welcome to the program. Mr. John Ng'ang'a is a renowned consultant in Taluma Consultants. He's a renowned public speaker. He's a renowned author of 11 books. And Mr. John Ng'ang'a, in the place we are in this nation, what would cause people to accept insults and even think they are worse than even the insults?
One of the things that surprised me the other day is to see an insult ascribed to the president of the US. Most likely it may not be him. It's just somebody pretending to be him and talking about our pastors and politicians are conmen and terrible. Now, I saw in several groups, people saying, yeah, they are not even describing her. We are worse, they are worse. And you know, he had said all pastors and all politicians cahoots in conning the people of Kenya. And I asked myself, for sure, why would somebody, when I insult you, you say, thank you very much, I'm actually worse? There are three possibilities that can get us to that level. Number one, people think it's a sign of humility to think low of yourself. The Bible does not ask us to think low of ourselves. In fact, it says, love others as you love yourself. That means you must appreciate yourself before you can appreciate others.
Yes.
And that's not selfishness. If you don't value yourself, it will be very difficult to value others because you not know their importance. That's why when you find somebody trying to commit suicide, it's a very big risk. Could also kill you. Because if you don't value their own lives, they could very easily, if you annoy them, they might not value your life. So when you see somebody starting to look down on themselves to the extent that, thank you, I'm actually worse. The first thing is they have mistaken that as humility. That when somebody says you are a bad speaker, it says I'm actually worse. It's not a sign of a good view of yourself. It's not a sign of accepting that God made something good. So I think that's the first problem we have among Kenyans, where we start thinking that by looking down on ourselves, that we are actually starting to be thought to be humble. And so you actually feel it's okay. But I'm saying that's not humility. Because humility is knowing that God has given you certain gifts.
Yes.
You do not see yourself as better than others. You realize God has given you gifts, but God who created you also created others.
Yes.
And so he has also given them their gifts. The gift you have may not be the gift they have. So when you go to other people, you respect them. But respecting them, honoring them, does not mean you look down on yourself. It means you appreciate yourself, be happy about how God has created you, be happy about the gifts God has given you, then realize other people are also gifted. So you don't look down on themselves. But I think the second thing that has caused it is something called kuchongiana. Now I might have to ask you, it was not there in my school days, but now I hear it on TV, kuchongoana. I don't even know the thing properly. Kuchongoana. I was very surprised that anybody with a sane mind would actually have something like that. I saw it on TV or on radio, where the children are encouraged to insult each other. Your father is so tall, I mistook him for a tree. You see, that I went to the market and I saw a loaf of bread being sold. It required a donkey to carry. Now, the it has become now almost an accepted culture. Because once it's taught in primary school,
Yeah.
people think it's normal to insult others. And you are not supposed to complain. You are supposed to accept. If I say your nose is so long, it goes ahead of you before you arrive. Now, if you have things like that, what are you teaching people?
Yeah.
You are teaching people to insult others and to accept to be insulted. So in the end, we are creating a value system that the scriptures cannot support. You are not allowed to call anybody a fool. In fact, it says you can't even call him a fool. That's the New Testament.
Yeah.
So if you can't call a fool, it means you cannot insult anyone. Now, if you are used to kuchongiana or whatever, then it means that when somebody says Kenyans are conmen, you feel like it's something to laugh about. So I think that's the second reason why people are in that category of accepting insults. Because then, if you are used to kuchongiana, it means you think it's a joke.
Yeah.
But surely, it's a joke that should be stopped.
Yes.
We are getting to the level where our laughter industry, so it is called, cannot creatively come up with a joke which you can laugh about, unless that joke is about laughing for someone. Why can't you create a joke which we can all laugh, but you're not laughing at anyone? Must we laugh at someone specific? So that somebody will be enjoying and the others. You know, you go to a wedding, the MC says, "Oh, can you see the mother of the bride? Wow, she has eaten." And this is one of the most important people in that wedding.
Yes.
And we are all bursting into laughter.
Yeah.
Because the MCs have stopped being MCs, which means master of ceremony.
Yeah.
I think they have become MC mental cases. Because the truth of the matter is, they sit there, it's your wedding, and you can even cry. They want to make jokes until the bride herself, "Can you look at that bride? Look at that dress. She must have forgotten to wear a green something. Because normally she wears green. Look, everything is white about her." You want to make fun of even the bride.
Yes.
That culture, where you think making a joke, making people laugh at somebody's expense is Christian, is normal. Is a culture that will make people, when you are insulted, we smile about it. Instead of correcting the one and telling them that's not who I am, I do not accept to be who God never created me to be. So I'm praying that we will stop these MCs, mental cases, who are, and we are paying them. What is even worse? When I got married 40 years ago, everybody was volunteering.
Yes.
Now, if you ask somebody to be MC, he wants several thousands, more money than you can make in a day as an engineer.
Yes.
And then his job is not to coordinate issues, is to become a clown with an L, make people laugh. And then even that make people laugh is not to creatively come up with jokes, is to look for somebody to laugh at. And then we all join him in laughing. So when you see people, they have been called names, and then they start just saying pastors are conmen. Yeah. You don't even know how they con. Now you start accepting. Like that one saying, "Oh, Kenyan pastors are conmen," and you start accepting. You know it is not true. Most likely your own pastor is not true. Is not a conman. But because there are some pastors who are conmen, you start accepting all pastors are conmen, which is not true. If you start to think about it, you defend it. But I think slowly, which is my third point, we are getting to an industry where I think is so. That's the third thing. We are still answering the question, why are people insulted and then they seem to smile about it? Part of it is also happening in the church. Not all churches, some churches. Where you go to church, it's not Sunday school, it's the adult service. But what the master of ceremony, assuming they are called, I think they are called worship leaders. Worship leaders are called, they all are making jokes their own. Let me give one I like repeating. The person who comes to lead us in worship, the first thing he tells us, greet your neighbor. No problem at that level. We all greet our neighbors. Then he reads a few songs. It comes from what they call worship to praise. And at the praise level, he says, greet your neighbor. Now your neighbor has not moved. So he knows in his head that he is talking something nonsensical. Because you cannot greet the same person twice. The next one will not be greeting.
No.
It will be a joke.
Yes.
But you think that is enough? The guy will come to make announcement. He doesn't know any other way of asking people to relax. Greet your neighbor. The third time. Then the preacher comes, and I might be the preacher. Again, greet your neighbor. Now imagine you went to church with your mother from the village. The first time you greet her, she says, "But I thought I greeted you at home." Then the worship leader starts, tells you now the praise, greet your neighbor. Your mother looks at you and says, "What's wrong with my son? Is he normal?" By the time you are greeting the fifth time, there's something wrong here.
Wrong with you.
Either with the person at the front or my son.
Yes.
Now, but you know now it has become normal. Everybody is making jokes in church. You cannot tell whether you are in church you life or in a Pentecostal church. You can't tell because people have now assumed making jokes, making adults. That guy is a judge of the Court of Appeal in the week. On Sunday, you want to make him look like a fool. And then we have accepted it. Now, when you start accepting that kind of culture, when people insult you, you think it's another joke. Because you have agreed. So what we are slowly doing is to remove the use of the head. In a normal being, in fact, I was in another university, college, and the worship leader told us, I don't think he told us to greet the neighbor, then he told us to jump. We are still waiting. I'm not started speaking. Then in the end he said, "You see here I'm powerful. I can tell you to do anything and you do it. If it was out there, you'd ask me why. Here I'm powerful." I thought, you mean the boy is aware that he's making a fool of us? When I went to the front now to preach, before starting my sermon, I said that idea is not a biblical idea. To imagine that people think when they're outside that is but when they come to the Christian Union, they check their head outside. They come headless. No, the Lord wants you to worship Him with your mind, with your body, and with your soul. If you are going to use your mind to worship Him, you will not do foolish things in the name of worship. So can you see why? Those are three reasons why people will be insulted. You are a dog. Yes, it's only, I have not barked for a while. Basically, it's important to understand it's not Christian and it's not good leadership.
That's true. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And continue forwarding your comments on our Twitter page at Leaders Dialogue Show and on our Facebook page at Leaders Dialogue. We'll be right back after the break.
Leader.